Well, good evening and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this public hearing tonight. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with Eagle's Environmental Support Division. Just going to be helping to moderate this public hearing. This is a public hearing for an Eagle application to install lake level control structures in the Charter Township of Texas, Kalamazoo County. We're going to get started here in just a minute, but before we do, I have a couple logistical things to go through. Just wanted to go through our agenda for the night. Starting off with this welcome and introduction that we're doing right now. And the big thing to keep in mind and that we're doing is there's actually kind of two parts to the hearing tonight. There's the first part, which is a informational session where the applicant is going to have an opportunity to provide some information on the project and application. And then following that, and that should go about 10-15 minutes. Following that, there'll be a question and answer session where you'll have an opportunity to ask some questions about the project. And that should go to about 6:30, and then at 6:30 we'll move on kind of the next part, which is the official hearing portion. And that's the part where you have a chance to make a statement for the record on this project and application. We'll also talk about a couple other things like the ways to submit an official comment and where to find other information, who to contact for further questions. For those of you who haven't attended our public hearings before virtually, all lines are muted during the hearing. However, you can submit your questions at any time using the questions box in the Zoom toolbar. And then also we're recording this hearing. So this will be on our YouTube channel in a couple days and you'll be able to watch it again or watch parts you may have missed. And we'll go through kind of how we're going to do the hearing part and other tools like raising your hand a little bit later on. All right, at this point, I would like to invite our other Eagle staff who are on the line to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves.
Hello, Derek Harrelson, Kalamazoo District Office. I'll be the hearings officer for the Zoom hearing tonight. Everybody could join us.
And I'm Kyle Alexander. I'm the supervisor for Water Resource Division out of Kalamazoo.
So thanks for joining us, Kyle and Derek. We're going to move right into the informational session portion where we're going to have a presentation by Tom Wheat. And then I think Julie Vanderweer is going to be on the line as well. So we're going to try to find and unmute both of them in our audience. I see Julie is unmuted. And then I found Tom. All right, Tom, looks like you're unmuted on our end. And I actually see two Tom Wheats. Are you there, Tom?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, yeah, thank you both for joining us here. I have your presentation here. So if you just want to let me know when to change slides to the next slide, if you could, please keep it to around 10-15 minutes to keep us on schedule tonight. And you can start when you're ready.
Okay, I hope to keep it less than that because this is really sort of phase 2 of the process we've been through in the last few years. Go ahead and change the slide. So the project goals here, it's really the same goals that we had in the short-term project where we where the lakes were flooded, 3 and 4 feet above where they are now, causing significant property damage, resulting in people not being able to use the lakes. And we went through the process of getting a lake level, a normal lake level, or also known as legal lake level for the lakes. And this project is the project that is moving forward during this permitting process so that we can control those lake levels pursuant to the court order. So really the project goal is the lake level control. Goals also no adverse impact. We have downstream water impacts. We have invasive species impacts that we want to, and wetland impacts. Again, it goes right back to the same issues that we were dealing with in the short-term project. We just want to be able to control the lake levels and have no adverse impacts downstream. The one big difference in this project is it is going to be durable infrastructure. We are going to be building, and you'll see in a slide in a little bit, infiltration beds in the lake. So the water will be filtered through sand into a pump station that will pump from Eagle Lake to Crooked Lake in a pipe that's below the ground, discharged to Crooked Lake, and then from Crooked Lake into the wetlands. Again, a pump station there, below ground piping, and a filter, the 40 micron filter we used before, in a much more solid and durable building. So go ahead and change. So this is just showing you the green. This is for, this is Crooked Lake, I believe. Yes, Crooked Lake. The green line shows you what we went through, where the lake levels were, 3.5 feet higher than what the legal lake level was set at. The legal lake level is the dotted line, the dotted horizontal line down there. The green is what we went through and where we are today at the far right. The blue shows the lake levels during that period. Had we had this pumping regime in if it was in the ground and working, it shows what the elevation fluctuations would have been. So this is sort of a worst case scenario, because this flooding was much worse than anything people had seen in the past. And had we had this project in service in Crooked Lake, the fluctuation above the legal lake level would have been just a little bit over a foot. So, worst case is in the past is flooding and you can't use your lake. The worst case is here for short periods of time. In this case, it was a year and a half. You might have water up on your beach. So, and then the other part of this is that the fluctuations are good for the lake, and also by having these fluctuations, we've reduced the pumping rate of the pumps. We were pumping up to 2,000 gallons a minute in the short term. We're proposing 800 gallons a minute here. So there are going to be some fluctuations, but again, worst case scenario is about a foot above the normal lake level. And that again is only going to happen a couple of years in the past experience, every decade or decade and a half or so. Next slide. Same story here for Eagle Lake. The fluctuation is a little bit less. Again, it's Eagle Lake got higher than Crooked Lake. The fluctuation in this case will be a little less, but just that's the same story as I just talked about. So next slide. So this is the overall view, very similar to the short-term project. As we go from Eagle Lake on the left down to Crooked Lake, the route will be different. We are going to be following existing easements. So there's a sanitary sewer line that runs from the south end of Eagle Lake out to PQ Avenue. We're going to be following or adjacent to that public easement. So the public utilities will be in the same easement. They'll be in the right of way along PQ Avenue and in the right of way along West Crooked Lake Drive, and then out in any easement in the Crooked Lake. Again, it's the durable long-term infrastructure that we're looking at there. And then on the Crooked Lake side, it has been the route has been changed a little bit. It is just to the south of the Bentwood Circle there, and going from a pump station to the filter building and then discharging into the wetlands. And then from there, it flows on into Bass Lake or into the wetlands across 8th Street into Bass Lake, and then there on down eventually to the Kalamazoo River. Next slide. So the critical issues are invasive species. We need to make sure that what we're pumping downstream doesn't infect the downstream waters with invasive species. We are reusing the 40 micron mechanical filter that we used during the short-term project. That is protective of the smallest invasive species, as well as it worked very well during the short-term project. The endangered species, protecting them, again, with the lower flows, and that the much lower flows than we had experienced during the short-term project, that will be protective of the endangered species, as well as downstream water level impacts. And then lastly, or maybe firstly, the lake water levels, to make sure that even during the worst periods, that the flooding on Eagle Lake and Crooked Lake is something that would be acceptable. Next slide. The monitoring that we have proposed, obviously we will be monitoring Crooked Lake and Eagle Lake. Those with the infrastructure we're going to be building, that will have communications back to the drain commissioner, who will be in charge of operating the system. 8th Street and Bass Lake, we've indicated to initially have a look at in terms of monitoring. And then 12th Street, Portage Creek at Kalamazoo, and then the Kalamazoo River. Those are all USGS gauges and are available online. Next slide. This is a schematic of the route of the piping from Crooked Lake to the wetlands. Starts with an infiltration bed in the bottom of Crooked Lake. So what will happen is we will excavate about 4 feet of sediment out of the lake and backfill it with sand, with a network of pipes, perforated pipes, like well screen type pipes in that bed. And so that what that will be doing is that will be taking water through there, and that will be protective of the 40 micron mechanical filter, where we don't have as many backwashes as we would as we saw during the short-term project. We have changed, we've reconsidered the backwash. In the short term, we had putting the backwash back into Crooked Lake, but because of the cleaner water we expect to see through the sand filter, and the fact that this system will not be in continuous operation, but only in operation during unusual climatological periods, the backwash will be discharged to the public sanitary sewer, which is that green line running north and south across the red line. So it comes into the infiltration bed, through the pump station, into the filter building, and then we're discharging it to the east side of the wetlands to minimize any kind of noise effects. We don't expect there to be any, but we've decided that just to minimize as much as possible the trickling water that goes into the wetlands. Next slide. So this is not the building, but it's going to be very similar to this, a split face block building, standing seam metal roof, a more durable building than what we had before. What we had before was just a pole barn. But this is the style that it will be. Next slide. And I apologize, this is not a great picture, but the pump station, what we're looking at there is that's a sanitary sewer pump station. And you can see a hatch with a circle. That is the wet well. And then you open up the hatch and your pump is down there. And then on the other, to the right there, you can see there's a valve vault In this case, because it's only one pump and we don't have as much plumbing, it's only going to be that circle, the wet well and one hatch, and then a control panel nearby. So that's what the pump station will look like. It'll be at grade. So unless you walk over the top of it, you won't be able to see it. Next slide. This is the Eagle Lake to Crooked Lake route. Again, an infiltration bed in the channel with a pump station. Again, the infiltration bed to filter out the water through the pump station. And then you can see the route of the pipe that will go. Again, the green line is the sanitary sewer. We're following that easement out to PQ Avenue and then on to Crooked Lake. Next slide. And that is really the end of my presentation. So.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for providing that presentation. We're going to move into the question and answer part of this. And so just so you're aware, if you want to ask a question, you can type it into the Q&A box, which you'll see in your Zoom toolbar. Or you can click the hand icon at the bottom of your screen. You can raise your hand. Or if we have any phone-in callers who are on the phone, you can type #2 in your phone. And what that will do is it'll raise your hand in Zoom and we can call on you. And so the way we're kind of going to do this is go back and forth between people who have their hand raised and people who have typed their question in. And we're going to ask our panel here of staff to help answer your questions. So are there any? And we'll do this either until we have no questions or until about 6:30. Are there any questions that anybody has on this project or application? One other thing that I wanted to mention too is that if you have a statement, that you want to make for the record on this project, we're going to get to that a little bit later on. So this part is specifically for any questions related to the project that we might be able to help answer. And I have one that came in. What is the start date of the project? I don't know, Derek, if you can, or.
I can answer that. This is Tom Wheat.
Okay.
Oops, I just opened up something and covered you guys up. The start date is, it will be dependent upon the permit, of course, but we are, the plans and specifications will be completed in 4 to 6 weeks. If the permit is issued by then we can go to bids. It would be a 2023 project. They would get started. And so once you get the bids, you get the numbers, there's going to have to be an assessment and a bonding period. So it'll be a spring to next fall construction period. The only thing that I don't know of yet is with supply chains, the pumping and the piping should be okay. Just the building, the time for the building, I'm not entirely sure. I would hope we could get that done in 9 months. But that's our plan, is to get it done by the end of 2023.
Okay, thanks for the answer, Tom. All right, are there any other questions on this application or project? All right, so I'll give it a couple more seconds here in case somebody's typing, but if not, we're just going to go through and continue on with the evening, going through some more information, and then again to the actual official hearing portion where you can make a statement. So I'm still not seeing any questions come in, so we're going to go ahead and move on.
Ryan, is Julie going to be part of the presentation?
That's up to you. I'm not sure what the expectation is for Julie or what Julie wants to do. Julie, did you have anything for us before we move on? And you should be unmuted on our end if you want to unmute yourself. And Julie, if you have a statement too, you're welcome to do that during the hearing portion too. Did you have anything?
So Julie, there she is.
I do have a statement to make on behalf of the township. I do have one to make on behalf of the township.
Okay, you're breaking up quite a bit here, Julie.
Ryan, she had a letter she wanted to read,
Okay,
and I do have a copy of that, so I'd be happy. She's not in the office and she's on the road, so she's
oh,
just in a bad cell, so.
okay, yeah, if she is in a bad location, yeah, you feel free
Can
to.
you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Can you hear us, Julie? Yeah, I'm thinking, Tom, maybe you just read it because we're having issues with Julie's audio.
Okay, all right. So this is Julie Vanderweer, statement from the township. I am writing this letter on behalf of Charter Township of Texas Board of Trustees in support of the lake level project for flood mitigation on Eagle and Crooked Lakes. From 2018 to 2021, hundreds of Texas Township residents suffered emotionally, physically, and financially from the historic flooding on Eagle Lake, Crooked Lake, and in the surrounding lakes and developments. At least 9 homes had to be raised, and hundreds of homes, properties required extensive and costly repairs. At the peak of the flooding, water levels exceeded 43 inches. In 2018, the township partnered with the Lake Association's property owners and Kalamazoo County Drain Office to construct a short-term pumping project to help mitigate the flooding. The short-term pumping project is one of the largest collaborative efforts in township history, requiring support and participation from hundreds of residents, stakeholders, community partners, and industry experts. While the short-term pumping project was deemed a success, we know that a permanent solution is imperative to ensure continued stability of water levels and minimize the risk of future flooding incidents of this scale. FEMA evaluated the project and determined it would be effective for flood mitigation and awarded the township grant monies from the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program to help pay for the construction of the project. Ironically, we were told by a longtime resident that Crooked Lake experienced flooding in the 1950s, and residents at that time attempted to establish a drainage district to prevent future flooding. Unfortunately, they were not able to garner enough support, and their efforts were unsuccessful. The Board of Trustees wants to make every effort possible to prevent another flooding catastrophe. The only way to permanently reduce the potential for flooding is to create an outlet for both Eagle Lake and Crooked Lakes, now that the normal lake level has been established. This outlet was carefully designed to protect the downstream property owners from flooding and the spread of invasive species while providing critical flood relief to the upstream properties. Our community and our residents have suffered an unimaginable amount over the past 4 years. We're asking for your assistance in preventing another flooding event of this scale in the future. Respectfully, Julie Vanderweer, Texas Township Superintendent.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, so before we get into the next part of this evening, we're going to talk about the other ways to submit an official comment in case you did not want to make a comment verbally tonight. You can submit a comment via My Waters by accessing the public hearing event under the submission number HPA JJCR 8D476. And at this link, and this link will go into the chat, or by mail to Eagle Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road, and that's spelled ADOBE Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan 49009. And the comment period after the public hearing will be open for 10 days, which will be through October 16th. All right, at this time, we're going to start this official hearing portion. Derek, I'd like to invite you to read the opening statement tonight.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Ryan. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek Carrollton, and I am the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, or EGLE. I will be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on EGLE submission number HPA-JJCR-8D476. With me tonight is Kyle Alexander, District Supervisor of Kalamazoo District Office. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. It will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. So by way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs that help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing those responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, Public Act 451 of 1994, as amended, otherwise known as Act 451. We are here tonight because the Charter Township of Texas has proposed the following: to maintain the court-established legal lake level for both Crooked Lake, which is 895.12 feet, and for Eagle Lake, which is 899.26 feet, by constructing outlets and lake level control structures at each lake to provide relief when the lakes rise above the legal lake levels. Infiltration beds will be constructed at each lake, connected to 12-inch diameter force mains and dry pit submersible pumping stations / water control structures. At the Eagle Lake infiltration bed, approximately 790 cubic yards of material will be dredged from, and 775 cubic yards of fill placed within 0.13 acres of bottomlands to construct the infiltration bed and header piping. Approximately 0.10 acres of wetland will be temporarily impacted to install approximately 370 linear feet of 12-inch diameter force main from the Eagle Lake infiltration bed to the Crooked Lake outlet via open trench installation. A dry pit submersible pumping station water control structure will be constructed in wetland. The Eagle Lake flood relief pump will be turned on when water levels exceed 4 inches above the legal lake level, and the maximum pump rate will be 500 gallons per minute. Water pumped from Eagle Lake will discharge to Crooked Lake through an existing seawall, and 5 cubic yards of riprap will be placed at the outlet. At the Crooked Lake infiltration bed, approximately 1,842 cubic yards of material will be dredged from, and 1,912 cubic yards of fill placed within 0.33 acres of bottomland to construct the infiltration bed and header piping. Approximately 470 linear feet of force main will be directionally bored beneath wetland to construct the Crooked Lake outlet adjacent to wetlands west of 8th Street. The Crooked Lake flood relief pump will be turned on when water levels exceed 4 inches above the legal lake level, and the maximum pump rate will be 800 gallons per minute. Discharge from Crooked Lake to the receiving wetlands will be treated with a 40-micron filter to remove aquatic invasive species. Part of the proposed activities that Tom Wheat previously noted, but which were in the public notice and the public hearing notice, was this 300 linear feet of 4-inch pipe anchored on bottomlands of Crooked Lake for the outlet for the filter backwash discharge. Like Tom Wheat said, and Brandon Newhoff from the township have communicated to Eagle, we understand that that activity has been removed from the proposed activities. The remaining work, I will continue to read that here. So the existing augmentation wells at each lake are proposed to turn on when water levels reach 8 inches below the respective legal lake levels for each lake, and turn off when water levels are 4 inches below the respective legal lake level for each lake. monitoring of downstream water surface elevations for 2 years following system activation is proposed to ensure that the levels do not rise unexpectedly. The monitoring locations proposed include 12th Street, Portage Creek, and the Kalamazoo River, and the data will be documented on a web-based platform available. The elevations will be monitored by the Office of the Drain Commissioner of Kalamazoo County on a weekly basis and following storms greater than 3 inches in 24 hours. Total temporary wetland impact is 0.10 acres. Total permanent wetland impact is approximately 36 square feet. So the purpose of tonight's hearing, in order for a permit to be granted, Eagle must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams, and Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451. Excuse me. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the lakes and affected wetlands. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 301, Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. The department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights. And the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. When reviewing an application for a permit under the provisions of Part 303, Wetlands Protection of Act 451, Eagle is charged to make the following indications as required by Section 303.11 of Part 303. Subsection 1, that a permit for an activity listed in Section 303.04 shall not be approved unless the department determines that the issuance of a permit is in the public interest, that the permit is necessary to realize the benefits derived from the activity, and that the activity is otherwise lawful. Subsection 4 requires that a permit not be issued unless it is shown that an unacceptable disruption will not result to the aquatic resources. And also under subsection 4A, the permit shall not be issued unless the applicant also shows either of the following: either that the proposed activity is primarily dependent upon being located in a wetland, or that a feasible and prudent alternative does not exist. So the purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the permit application an opportunity to provide information that Eagle can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that Eagle can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that Eagle must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that Eagle is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there is widespread support or opposition to the project. So in just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the Sunday, September 25th edition of the Kalamazoo Gazette. So the instructions for making a comment during the hearing, as we discussed before, if you do have a comment, you're going to raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar. And to ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner, we will follow these steps. So first, the applicant and their consultant has had the opportunity to describe the project and make a statement. Next, we will call on those who have previously indicated that in the registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on those that raise their hand in the Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. So as a reminder, if anyone is participating in the hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator from Ryan on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. And then you can also submit comments via MyWater's via email or to mail them to our district office via US mail. And then when all the comments have been completed, we will make sure, we'll ask if anybody else would like to make a statement. So when your name is called, after you've indicated you'd like to make a comment, we will unmute your microphone in Zoom. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association that you represent. And everybody will have about 4 minutes tonight to make their comments. So we'll indicate when, just kind of keep your eye on the clock, but if need be, we'll indicate when you should be wrapping up. But please try to wrap up the comments and end within that allotted time. And if need be, we'll indicate when the time is up. So I just ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that Eagle staff is here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. So the hearing is being recorded, as Ryan indicated earlier, and your comments will be a part of the information Eagle will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of this hearing, so it's open through October 16th. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in Eagle's decision. And then following the close of this public comment period, Eagle will make a decision some point after that to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or to send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the Eagle My Waters website and searching for the application number, which I'll read again. It is HPA-JJCR-8D476. Thank you all for your attention and patience as I read a very long script. We will begin calling the names of the people who have already indicated that they would like to make a statement now.
Excellent. Thanks for reading that, Derek. As Derek said, I have a list of names, I have a list of 5 names who indicated in registration that they'd like to make a comment. So we're going to start with those. So I'll read your name off. If you're on this list, we'll unmute you on our end. You'll have four minutes. Please identify, please provide your name and the organization you're associated with. And I'll also mention who's on deck next, just so you have an idea of when you'll be going. After we get through the list of names, we will go to people who have their hand raised. So everyone will have an opportunity to make a comment tonight. But we're going to start with the first person on my list is State Representative Christine Morris. And I did not see Representative Morris on our list. Unless you see Jim, I don't see her on there. So
nope, not in attendance.
Okay, so the next person up is going to be Thomas Wheat, followed by Trish Roberts. So Tom, we'll unmute you. I don't know, maybe you put your name on here to make the presentation, or did you have something additional to say in this hearing portion? And you're unmuted on our end. You there, Tom?
No, I have no more comments. I must have accidentally registered twice.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Tom. All right. Next up is Trish Roberts, followed by Lisa Newby. So Trish, you are unmuted on our end. Looks like you're unmuted. You can begin your comment when you're ready.
Okay, this is Trish Roberts. I'm treasurer and a member of the Texas Township Board of Trustees. I am also a resident of Crooked Lake, Texas. So thank you for accepting my request to comment on the Crooked and Eagle Lakes Lake Level Control Project. As a member of the Texas Township Board, I appreciate Superintendent Vanderweer's solution-driven efforts over the past 4+ years to mitigate the flood damage countless residents experienced. I also am grateful for the time and cooperation our local lake associations, the township, our engineers, and the county drain office provided, which resulted in the design and implementation of the short-term solution. The short-term solution provided reassurance to all involved, including downstream property owners, that a project could be effective without negative impact. My husband, Jim Roberts, served as president of Crooked Lake, Texas Association, and prior to his death last year, was instrumental in collaborating with all parties involved by advocating for both lakes, providing easements for equipment, and promoting both the short and long-term projects. We know that the county and the state's focus has always been on mitigating high water. As a 43-year resident of Crooked Lake, I'm glad to see that Eagle's notice has addressed and defined the use of the augmentation wells. It is sometimes easy to forget that in previous years, Eagle Lake and Crooked Lake found it necessary to operate those wells to protect property. The lake leadership has done so responsibly for 60+ years. I appreciate the county drain office's willingness to recognize the possible use of the augmentation wells in the project detail. Eagle's public notice acknowledged the intent to construct an outlet on the bottom lands of Crooked Lake for the filter backwash discharge. I would like to hear that Eagle is committed to and will approve this project utilizing the public sanitary system for the backwash discharge. Although I understand that the filtered backwash will be less mass than that experienced during the short-term project, I strongly encourage Eagle approve Prine and Newhouse plan to use the public sanitary system for the discharge. The approval of the lake level project will provide much needed peace of mind to the Texas Township community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Trish. All right, next up is Lisa Newby, and after Lisa will be Mike Glomsky. So Lisa, you're unmuted and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you very much. My name is Lisa Newby. I am the president of the Bentwood Shores Condominium Association, and I am the vice president of the Crooked Lake, Texas Association, and also resident of Crooked Lake. I echo everything that Trish Roberts so eloquently said. That's exactly what I was going to make a statement on. I will save the time, but I do appreciate Tom Wheat for finding an alternative solution to the backwash pipe and putting that in the sanitary sewer system. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate Eagle for monitoring our wetlands that have been so very much impacted by the short-term fix. And I would just please ask that we monitor those so they can try and regain some of their beauty that they had before. I appreciate everyone on this project for working with the residents of Bentwood Shores and understanding the impact it has made on our neighbors as well as owners that live off of the lake. Thank you for your time and good luck in the future.
Are you there, Lisa? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you all done? You broke up kind of at the end, at the very end there. Are you all set with your statement?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, so next up is Mike Glomsky. So Mike, you are unmuted on our end and can begin with your statement when you're ready.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm Mike Kolomski. I live on Crooked Lake. I've been here for about 38 years. I want to express my appreciation for everyone doing the work on this project. I know it's been lengthy and difficult, but I don't know if anyone's already read my comments I've already submitted prior to this meeting. But I guess to get right to it, my big concern is the lake level that we have on Crooked Lake. I always felt that the level has been higher than it typically has been because of the implementation of the new augmentation pump. Ever since the new augmentation pump was installed, I lost my beachfront. And that over time, as well as this year, I have been losing some of my lakeshore because of the activity on the lake. And I'm not here to frown on that. I've lived on lake, and me and my kids have enjoyed water skiing, whatever else. But the new toy is a wake boat, which a person can ride a wave behind it, and it generates quite a large wave, and it eventually hits the shore, and it does cause soil erosion. And so with that in mind, I wouldn't mind the lake going lower, but having heard that with this new system, it's required to go up additional 4 inches from the target level, I'm thinking this isn't going to be good because of the climate change, how often this happens, and how slow it goes down. As in reference to this year, the lake level was about 4 inches above the target, and it wasn't until the end of September is where it actually is about 6 inches below the targets. In other words, it was the entire summer that this lake level was, somewhat elevated than what the target level was designed for. So I'm just don't know if there's a way we can get the lake level a little bit lower, because I'm looking for a better buffer zone between my lakeshore and the waves that hit it. And there used to be a big sandy beach there that could handle that. But with this upper lake level, that's no longer there. It's just not there. And I don't know if this is out of, if I'm stepping on a line here, but if anyone would like to come to my house, I can show them the effect on my shore. I can even show them photographs.
You have about one minute, Mike, 1 minute left, Mike.
Okay, and I can show them photographs of the lake level prior to the implementation of the new augmentation pump. And I just want to thank you for listening to me. I'm done.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. All right, so now at this point, that's everybody I had on my list who indicated during registration they want to make a comment. If anybody else would like to make a comment at this time, you can do so by selecting the raise hand icon in your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the screen. I don't believe we have anyone on the phone, but if we do, you can also select #2 on your receiver. And that will also raise your hand in Zoom. Is there anybody else at this time who would like to who's on the line, who would like to make a comment? It looks like I do have some hands raised. So we're going to go ahead and start to go through the raised hands. So Roderick Kraft. Roderick, we're going to unmute you on our end, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself and make your comment. All right, it looks like you're unmuted on our end. Feel free to start when you're ready. Nope, I think you still need to unmute yourself on your end, Roderick. There's a microphone icon. Okay, there you are.
I got it. I'm Roderick Kraft. I'm the Secretary of the Crooked Lake, Texas Association. I'd also like to echo the comments of other people so far in acknowledging the efforts and cooperation between the Township, our Lake Board, the Eagle Lake Board, the Drain Commission, Kalamazoo County government, and Derek, who had been at a huge number of those meetings. And people from our Township Board, like Superintendent Vanderweer, who probably learned a lot more about hydrology than they ever really wanted to know. But people stuck with it, and it's been a very long road. The temporary solution worked beautifully, and Prine and Newhoff did a great job planning it. It worked like they said it would. They've come with several versions of this current plan for a permanent solution to our problem. And they've modified that a number of times, and I think it's terrific. And using the sanitary sewers for the backwash is a brilliant idea, I think. My wife's family has owned the property we live on since 1918. And there's not been a flooding issue that I've ever been aware of that they talked about. My mother and father-in-law removed the original cottage and built our current house, and they didn't even put sump pumps in the crawl space. We are low enough that we don't have a basement, but that crawl space had a cement bottom, and it was never with liquid water. There was, obviously water vapor seepage upwards, but that wasn't a huge issue. With the flooding issue, we had water down there, and we now have a beautiful sump system and so forth in our basement, but our crawl space. But lots of people invested even much more than we did, and we're still trying to mitigate the damage done to our bank. I've been planting native plants and things that have more better root. We had a native grass in one part already planted, and that came up through 4 inches of flood water and kept part of my bank from washing away. But we're still working at trying to mitigate that now over 2 years after the flooding problem. So I think this solution is going to be good for us. We're highly in favor of it. We do not want to go back to worrying if we're going to get water inside our house anymore. It was close to the closest part the flood came was about 6 feet away. So don't want to do that again. That was a lot of very anxious days. And I think this plan is very good in its conception and will serve us for my son and my grandsons to eventually make use of this property as their own. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Roderick. All right, next up is Leonard Bosma. Leonard, we're going to unmute you on our end, and then you can unmute yourself by selecting the microphone icon, and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. I'm Len Bosma. I'm a resident of Texas Township. I live on Eagle Lake. I am also the vice president of the Eagle Lake. Oops.
Sorry about that, Leonard. I had a snafu and hit the button. You can unmute yourself and start over. Sorry about that.
I'm Len Bosma. I'm the a resident of Texas Township. I live on Eagle Lake. I'm also the vice president of the Eagle Lake Texas Association. The Eagle Lake Texas Association strongly supports the proposed solution advanced in being discussed tonight. We also wish to thank Texas Township, Prime Noonhoff, the Kalamazoo Drain Office, and Eagle for doing the work that will get this solution in place. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comment. All right, next up is Suzanne Walters. So Suzanne, we're gonna unmute you on our end, and then you can unmute yourself and begin when you're ready. And there should be a microphone icon at the bottom of your screen in your Zoom toolbar that will let you unmute yourself so that your microphone will work. Are you there, Suzanne? All right, I think what we'll do is
How about that?
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I don't know why it's Suzanne. She's my wife.
Okay.
I'm the one who's on here, and it was a little bit challenging, but I'll make comments. I'm pretty sure she's not on the line. My name is Russell Walters. I live on Crooked Lake. I also happen to be the president of the Crooked Lake Association. I've been involved in the flooding situation since its inception. We also want to make sure we thank everyone who's been involved in coming up with the solution. Compromises have been made, discussions have taken place, and ultimately we came up with the plan that you all heard about tonight. I support this plan. Our board supports this plan. And to the extent that I know of feedback from our lake residents, they support the plan. Certainly they can speak for themselves. We established a legal lake level and have been anxiously waiting for this permit to be approved and the project to be implemented so that we can prevent future flooding. This year, we've had high water, had no way to deal with it because the project is still uncompleted. And all I'm going to say, in addition to everything else that's been said in support of it, is I would ask that we expedite the approval of the permit and the construction to the extent humanly possible. Want to thank everyone for all their efforts, and hopefully we can get this in place and prevent future flooding. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. All right, are there any other, anyone else who would like to make a comment out there? Again, just select the raise hand icon you'll see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're on the phone, select #2 and that will raise your hand as well. We'll call on you in turn. We'll give it a couple seconds here to see if anybody else decides to raise their hand. Next thing we'll go to is we'll talk about the other ways to make a comment again, and then who to contact for further information. So with that, I'm still not seeing any other raised hands. So we're going to move on to the next part of tonight's hearing. So with that, Derek, I'd like to invite you to read the closing statement for us tonight.
That's right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for their comments and cooperation. We definitely appreciate your interest in the project and taking the time to be here tonight. As I indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you can submit additional written comments through October 16th, 2022. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. So just to remind you that you can submit those comments in a couple different forms. You can submit them via My Waters and the link that Jim placed in the chat box. You can submit them via email directly to me with my contact information that's been listed, or you can mail them to our district office. And with that, that is the end of our formal hearing.
All right, thanks for reading that, Derek. Yes, Derek mentioned, see on the screen in front of you the other ways to make an official comment. You can do that through October 16th. The link was also put in the chat, and you can submit those comments by mail also to Eagle Water Resources Division, Kalamazoo District Office, 7953 Adobe Road, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49009. If you have additional questions, you can contact Derek Haroldson. His contact information is on the screen. By phone at 269-569-3609 or at haroldson@michigan.gov, HAROLDSOND@mi.gov or michigan.gov. And with that, Kyle, I was wondering if you had any closing comments for us tonight.
Oh, just extra thank you to everybody in attendance. We really do appreciate the participation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kyle and Derek, for being part of this hearing, and for everyone who asked a question or commented tonight. The last thing I wanted to end with was just a reminder that this recording to this hearing will be closed captioned, and it will be on our YouTube channel here in a few days for you to access and review. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Good night.